Thank you for listening to Depictions Media Radio. Okay, welcome back everyone. As a business mentor coach to entrepreneurs, serial entrepreneurs, Jeremy B. Shapiro helps founders find entrepreneurial freedom as a true business owner. An important distinction that many entrepreneurs can easily miss when working in their business instead of on their business. Over 2 decades, through structured masterminding, one-on-one coaching, and consulting work, Jeremy has been helping entrepreneurs discover the core strengths in themselves and their businesses and attain the freedom they deserve. Jeremy has had a number of businesses started. When you hear the number of businesses they actually started, we'll ask him about that. You will be astounded. And at the same time, if you're looking to help your business grow in all the right ways, he is the guy to get it done for you. So why don't we welcome Jeremy to the show, and let's start finding out how to turn that project into something much bigger than what we might have ever imagined. Welcome to the show, Jeremy. Now, 2 decades of entrepreneurship, and you have. We'll get to your mastermind and everything, what that actually looks like, because it's one of the core things that you do. Where did it all start? 20 years ago, where were you?
Yeah, so it's 20 pushing to 30. I hate to say, but we're getting towards the other side of 20 plus years now. I've always been an entrepreneur. Going back towards my high school days, I was both attending high school and building up one of my first businesses. And as I got towards college, I was trying to do this really challenging thing, which was balancing full-time university and like a business that was starting to take up like 40 hours a week. So it wasn't just me. I'd expanded out. I'd been building out a team, but I was at this inflection point of my business needed more of my time. And so I made a really difficult decision as I look back of putting university on hold for a semester, because in my mind, this was just a little bump in business. And then, I'd come on back and get back to school and the business would be off and running. My wife, who met me around that time, will tell you even till today that she looks back when I told her that I was going to be going back to school, and she knew even then, like, nah, this guy's not going back. And she wasn't wrong. But, here we are all these years later, and, I've been a serial entrepreneur. Most every business I've launched has been a spinoff of one of my previous businesses, or filling a need that I had in one business, or somehow related to the people I was already helping. And that's always been entrepreneurs and helping entrepreneurs move towards what I call entrepreneurial freedom.
Yeah. Well, entrepreneurial freedom, that's a really cool word. What does that actually look like?
So, it's funny, when I use the term entrepreneurial freedom, some folks think we're talking about just the financial freedom part. And yeah, done right, that can come from owning your business. In fact, many folks get into business because they want to, find that financial freedom part. But entrepreneurial freedom is really about freedom of time. It's freedom of choice. It's optionality. It's you getting to choose how you spend your time. So when you build your business in what I would call the right way, you have the right people, the right systems, and so on. That lets you spend more time giving back in your community with causes that are important to you, spending time with family, spending time with, spirituality in your business, hobbies, whatever it is that's important to you. It lets you have choice in how you do that. And for most of us, look, we're entrepreneurs because we love the work that we do. And so we spend some of that time that we've gotten back within our own businesses. And that's totally fine. But it means you're doing the work that you want to do and the work that's important to you with the clients you want to and the kind of projects that are interesting to you and so on.
Yeah. Because I hear this a lot from people. They're like, I know some people, they started their own foundation and stuff, like charitable foundation, and they're like, they're like, I have to work 7 days a week. But didn't you choose that? Because that same business is also giving to the community, and I'm assuming that means that they're doing things that are also giving to the community, and then you find out on the back end is like, oh no, it's paperwork, it's this, it's that, it's everything, anything but being able to go out and help people. So
it's so interesting. Many people who get into business are right along the lines of what you're sharing there. They are typically what we call a technician, right? They're doing the work of the business, right? You're an accountant working in an accounting firm and you do accounting work, right? You're a plumber in a plumbing company, you do plumbing and so on. And so the next natural step is you go and you hang your shingle and you run your own business doing that same trade. But along with that comes all the rest of the work of owning a business. Not just the work of the business, but now you're dealing with, your bookkeeping, you're dealing with your marketing, you're dealing with the sales, you're dealing with everything that supports that core work of the business. And what I find is a lot of times you find solopreneurs that are in this solopreneurship space of having the worst parts of a job and the worst parts of a business. And so when we move towards entrepreneurial freedom, we're helping folks move from being a solopreneur to a true business owner, where you have a business that actually supports you, as opposed to you putting in 90-hour work weeks, supporting the business.
Now, being a solopreneur, because I'm a control freak myself, right? I say that with great conviction and affection. That doesn't mean that I don't know when to pass a job on to someone who's better suited to do it. It just means that the core thing, you are going to be in control of the direction, right? Yeah.
So you, as the founder, are typically still the visionary. You will often still set the direction for the company. But one of the challenges of being stuck in a JOB in a prison that you've created for yourself is that it can be hard to A, recognize that, and B, to get out of that. But it doesn't have to be so hard. I had a client I was working with who himself was a solopreneur. And he wanted to be there for his customers when they needed support from him, because his name and his pride is tied up in the product. And that's good. You do want to stand behind your product. So it's commendable.
Yeah.
The downside to that is that he loved mountain biking, hiking, getting outdoors, being in nature. It was good for him. It was restorative for him. It was good for his health, well-being, etc. But there wasn't much cell phone coverage where he liked to go hang out. So he felt tied to having to be available to his customers all the time. And so he wasn't getting out and recharging himself. So one of the first things we did was we got him a support person. So simply having someone on the front lines to receive customer inquiries and get back to them, freed him up to handle sales meetings and not worry about looking at his phone during a sales meeting, let him get back into the outdoors where he got recharged and was good for his health and mental well-being, and freed him up to do other things in the business that weren't just the frontline support.
Yeah.
And so that was like this first step towards getting back some of that time and claiming back some of that freedom.
Yeah. Now, getting a support person, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to take on an employee, does it?
No. So in this case, that was like, it was a outsourced, freelancer. And for a lot of businesses, sometimes their first hire are freelancers. And in fact, you can build entire businesses where all your team members are freelancers. You can also go the employee route. There's pros and cons to both of those. But the point is you're offloading tasks from yourself somewhere else. And that typically comes in one of those three forms, right? An employee, a VA or a freelancer, right? Or thirdly is like an agency or a vendor, right? So you hire a company to do something for you. So you can hire, for example, an answering service where you have a business arrangement with them. They answer your incoming calls, they route calls to you, take messages, take orders, and so on, right? Or you can have a freelancer do that, or you can do it. Which one of those, is going to let you scale and be less distracted when you're focusing on the deep, important work in your business?
Yeah. Now, I know when you find you talk about the entrepreneurial freedom, that when people find it, something else seems to light up in them, right?
Yeah. Yeah. We all know that feeling, or many of us do, of having to do something you don't want to do, but you, quote, have to do it for the wrong reasons, right? Many times, if you think about, you probably have friends who have jobs and don't particularly love them, but they have to go to the office and sit through the meetings they don't want to be in and, have the one-on-ones they don't want to be a part of and so on because they get a paycheck and benefits and so on. So you look at sort of the energy that comes from someone they're talking about the job they don't like, but they get a paycheck and benefits from, right? Versus someone who spends their time how they want to and is able to pursue their passions and interests and actually make meaningful change in other people's lives, right? There's a different level of excitement and enthusiasm that comes with that. You are charting and choosing your own way, and you're doing what you want to do and what you feel is the right thing to do and not what you, quote, have to do. And there's a big, big difference in those two perspectives.
Yeah. Yeah. And, of course, you help people find that. Now, one of your biggest tools, we were talking about this in the pre-interview and everything, about you have this mastermind where you start helping, guiding, and molding people into this, what you like to call the entrepreneurial freedom. I keep going back to that word because I like it. It's cool.
It's great. It's wonderful. Yeah. So for me as a business owner, for decades, masterminds were such a powerful tool that helped me move ahead, get unblocked, and so on. And so, like, the idea of like a mastermind goes back to Napoleon Hill came out with a book in the 30s called Think and Grow Rich. Mm-hmm. So within Think and Grow Rich, chapter 10 is called Power of the Mastermind, the driving force, the 9th step towards riches. Now, what he talks about in there is that when you get together, more than one person in the same room at the same time, it's not just this like additive collective wisdom of what you both know. By being together and sharing that space, you actually create this mastermind, which is the combination of everyone's thoughts working together towards a common goal and harmony, right? So you think about like if you've ever been like in a brainstorming session where you're spitballing ideas with a bunch of folks, right? It's not like you picked the one idea that one person had that thank goodness they were there. It's usually a development of, layered building from the conversations that you're all having together that would never have happened if you weren't all together in the same space. So the way we use masterminds in business is we get folks together once a month for a full day Bay Area mastermind meeting. And that's where we really delve into what's going on with everyone, what they've accomplished over the past month, what they're working on, what blocks they have or what challenges they're facing, what's been working, what's not, and so on. And what you get from this is not just peer advisory and feedback and input from those that are around you, but you get this really powerful facilitated conversation. But even more than that, what I love is that when we have people join us for a test drive to see what the mastermind is like for a day, they come in with an idea of what they know. This is usually their area of expertise, the stuff they're doing really well in business, right? So that's the stuff they know they know. They also come in with the stuff they know they don't know. And this is usually their block or their biggest question that they felt if they could only get, this big question answered, they could move forward. right? So there's something they know they don't know. But the real opportunities I see again and again around the table are the third category. And those are all the things you don't know you don't know. And when others are sharing what's going on in their business, what's working, what's not, what the challenges are, that's where those big aha moments come from. That's where those real mastermind breakthroughs come from. Because you're getting exposure to new ideas, new ways that people are doing business, new ways people are generating leads, closing sales, building their business that you never thought of before. And so this isn't just like a presentation format where a person is broadcasting. The hot seat's an interactive conversation. So from that conversation, what's coming up is you have a different business owner sharing what's going on in their business, maybe how they're growing their business, and you then ask the questions around that. And so one of my favorite examples of this is we have an e-commerce business owner sitting across the table from a retail store, right?
Okay.
The retail store has been growing their business through direct mail, right? Sending, buying lists, sending out, physical mailers, and people come into the store. The e-commerce business owner has been doing email marketing as one of their channels, sending out emails, people click and they buy online. Both business owners are very successful. Both also want to grow. And so the questions start coming up to each other around what vendors to use, what best practices, how you're finding the lists, what the offers are, and all these things. And next thing you know, the e-commerce business over the next month, one of their accountability items that they follow through on is the e-commerce business owner worked with the list broker, bought a list, put together a print mail advertisement, sent out direct mail, got new customers who'd never heard of them in the door, buying online now on the list and so on. All because of what a retail store owner was sharing. And on the flip side, the retail store owner starts asking customers at the front counter in the store for email addresses, creates a VIP membership club like the e-commerce business had for repeat customers, starts sending out email marketing with permission to these customers. And what do you know, starts getting additional incremental sales from a whole new channel simply by hearing about someone else's success and being able to ask them directly in that closed door confidential space where you can have the real conversations about real numbers, what's working and what's not.
Yeah.
So that kind of cross-pollination is what happens when you're exposed to what you didn't know. And that gives you direction and helps you find those new opportunities.
There's real power in those. I didn't know that I didn't even know to ask. I didn't. There's real power in those situations. Real learning too, right? So
yeah, what's interesting too is that when if you think about working like with a coach, for example, right? You have one person you're talking to, or if you're spitballing with a friend or one other business owner, that's great. But when you have a group, a true peer advisory group, you're getting feedback from all around, and that can challenge your beliefs, your paradigms. We had someone who came into the room to see if the group would be a good fit for his business. And one of the first questions he was asking was around what he was charging per hour for his work. And in his mind, the paradigm that he was working within, his belief system, was you're paid hourly, and the more experience you have, the more you can get paid. It's an understandable approach. Many folks share that belief. But we were able to provide the feedback of switching to a value-based pricing model of what is the value that you're providing to your clients. Can you price yourself that way? And that's a totally different way of viewing what your value is and how much you can get paid. And even still, this guest was challenging back, saying, well, yeah, maybe I'll do that, but first I want to get X number more clients. Because in his mind, he wasn't worth that yet. And here the group saying, no, you are, because you've just shared with us the benefit you deliver and the value you deliver. You can charge based on that. So we're able to sort of help people get unstuck in areas they didn't even know they were stuck just by sharing with them the group's successes in getting unstuck from the same place. Yeah. You're in a room of folks who've been there, who've done that, and want nothing but the best for you.
Yeah. Now, hang on one second there. For everybody listening, this is a more common problem than you think. And you should be looking at a more value-based system of... Because you are actually putting your value into other people's businesses. So, go ahead, Jeremy. Because we just in our own networking group, we just had a conversation around value-based pricing, And I told a wedding photographer that's in our group, I said, you need to take your price and multiply it by 5. And he looked at it and he's like, but that puts me up over close to $10,000 a wedding. I'm like, yeah, exactly.
Sounds good.
I said,
Yeah.
trust me, you
Yeah.
need to. This is where you need to be, because if you see his photography and everything, that it's like, wow, this is awesome stuff you're
Yeah.
doing. So make people pay
It's
for
interesting with the price elasticity. What we see again and again is almost always, not every time, but almost always, when you test a price increase, profitability goes up. You typically don't lose new customers,
it. No.
and you attract better customers. So it's okay, our listeners. You have my permission to raise prices.
Yeah.
Can I share with you one other quick story, just because we're talking value-based
Yeah. Go
pricing?
ahead.
So we had a member in our group, and she had a business, was seeing success with it, had built relatively quickly a 6-figure business. And someone reached out to her out of state and found her and was like, hey, can you come out here and teach me how to build the same business you have, but out here in my market? And so that wasn't her core business, right? Her core business was doing what she did, not showing people how to build the same kind of business. So she came to the group and she was trying to figure out like what to charge for this. And she was like, well, like maybe if I charge like, I don't know, $100 an hour, if I'm out there for a day, that's like $800, but then I have to pay for my flights and I have to pay for my accommodations. And so like, I don't know, right? So she's noodling this through and we're like, hold on. You're going to show someone how to build like a 6-figure business and not make the same mistakes you did and just give them the blueprint for the exact same business? Shouldn't they be covering all your expenses? And shouldn't that be like, easily tens of thousands of dollars?
Yeah.
And, she's looking at us like, well, but like, that's not, my time's not worth that. We're like, hang on. It's not just the time you're spending with them. It's the time of your career that has gone into you learning how to do the thing that you're doing.
Right.
That's where that value is, right? You learned 1,000 ways not to create the business that you have now. That's the value you're bringing, is how to and how not to. So don't think about this from like my hourly time is. Think about the value that you're bringing. Yeah. So the end of that story is, with a deep breath, she, went home, practiced in front of the mirror, and then, offered that 5-figure price to that prospect who was like, done, great. And she got that. So she well over 10x'd, what she was going to make on that by moving to value-based pricing, simply by getting that feedback from peer advisors who wanted nothing but the best for her. That's a huge win. Well, we love those.
I want to ask this question though. With value-based pricing, people are going to, if they have it or they have the ability to get it, they're just going to pay the price. Don't you think that people are going to,
if the value's there?
They're just going to look to find to pay the bill if they see the value, right?
Yeah, if your value is there, then the price isn't an issue, right? If your value is not there, that's where you run into price ceilings and run into issues, right? So the wedding photographer you were talking about, if the work was sort of mediocre at best, probably couldn't 5x that price, could you? No. Right? But when you do excellent work and you truly differentiate, done right, one of the things we talked about is how you don't have any quote competition. When you're talking to a prospect, it's just a matter of checking for lead qualification on their side, and it's a done deal, right? Mm-hmm. If your prospects view competitors when they look at you and they think that you are just one of many, then that's a positioning challenge, and we've got to fix that so you are the only option. And that typically comes from niching, branding, and dialing in who it is that you serve and how you offer more value than anybody else out there. So there is no other option.
Yeah. Well, going back to our word entrepreneurial freedom, I told him this because everybody knows that we're also filmmakers as well as podcasters, and that we also do film editing also. And I told him like this. I said, if you charge more and that person sees the value in what it is that you're doing, you have now the time to sit and put your style to it because that's what they want.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
it was like I could see the dimmer switch coming on. It's like
I love it. I love it. Yeah, if you think about like in photography, if you have just any old photographer who's like, look, I do pet photography, I do portraits, I do, headshots, I do weddings and all this, like, is that who you want as your photographer? Or do you want someone who's like, look, I only do, beach weddings, for sunset of, couples who have, wedding party this size and sort of niche down, right? And someone's like, yeah, we're doing a beach wedding. I want the person who knows about all the challenges that come with that. And the guy who's like, oh yeah, like the reflection that comes off the water, we handle this way, and like that's just what we do, right? When you if you need cardiac surgery, do you want the general practitioner / veterinarian / barber, or do you want the person who's like a cardiac specialist who just does heart surgery, on people like you? Right. You want a specialist, and that's always worth more.
Yeah, that's exactly right. It's like definitely, and that's a good example. Heart surgery, we all need to. That leads us into we do need to kind of specialize in what we do, don't we?
Yeah, yep. It's easy, especially early on, if you don't have that mission, that vision, the purpose dialed in, to take whatever work comes your way, and then you start to get defined by all the projects you say yes to, and there are going to be some kinds of projects, clients, etc., that just aren't a good fit. But early on, you feel sort of a need to do whatever pays the bills, but ideally, you grow to that next step where you niche down to really where your specialty is, and you're able to start saying no to projects that aren't a fit, or conditional no's where the client knows what would make it a fit. Many years back, I had a prospect that I was talking about doing some consulting work, and for what they're looking for, I basically had 3 terms that I came back with and said, like, look, like this isn't going to be a fit for what I do, unless the following 3 things happen. And so he said, okay, and made those 3 things happen. And next thing you know, I had a great client to work with, right? So when you know where your line is, you can communicate that. And then some folks will disqualify and other folks will more consciously qualify because they'll be attracted to that specialty.
Again, it goes back to if you put enough value into yourself, they see the value and then it's like, oh, well, let me meet those conditions and get back to you.
Right. Yep. Exactly.
So, awesome. Is it? I don't know. I just think that's like a huge problem. And how do you walk a person through that so that they start to see that they have a specialty, that they have that talent, and that talent polished up brings them what they want.
So at a certain point, so most of the business owners we work with in our mastermind group are established business owners with people, systems, proven sales process, and they're scaling, right? And they want to continue to grow. But we have, for our founders, we have a founders group that we actually launched last year for folks who are earlier stage, right? And what I found is those are really 2 very different avatars, right? So when we talk about having our mastermind group for established businesses with proven sales processes, that consciously repels the earlier stage founders, but attracts the established business owners, right? And what was funny is I still found myself talking to founders who were saying, Jeremy, we want to do something with you. Can we hang out with other founders? And that's really what started the founders group. And by having that separate home for them, we can make sure people are in the right place. A founder is going to ask the how do I questions, right? And the established business owner is going to share, here's what I'm doing, how do I do it better?
Right.
And those are vastly apart, which is why, you don't put those in the same fish tank by design. So in terms of some of these challenges, there's different challenges you face as an earlier stage business owner than you face as an established and scaling business owner. So this idea of niching is typically figured out by the time you are more established and starting to scale, but not always. And what's nice, though, is at that point, you have had enough customers that we can start to look for the patterns. So we can look at, which customers do you enjoy working with the most? Like what category? Mm-hmm. Where do you see the most success right? Where do you deliver the most value, right? What has the most profit? What takes the least time? Like we can look at any of these metrics to dial into where you want to niche. And then the cool thing with niching is no one's saying you have to say no, but you're just choosing who do you want to attract in terms of your branding, your website, even your company name, your product names, and so on, right? So if you think about even, I use the example sometimes of pizza shops, right? Mm-hmm. Pizza can be viewed as a commodity. You want pizza, pizza. Not really, right? There's a lot of companies out there who sell pizza, right? There's a lot of companies out there selling pizza, and they're all still in business for some reason. So clearly it's not just commodity. People aren't always going for the cheapest, are they? Well, people aren't always going for the fastest delivery, are they? Right? So you look, if you think about going out to a nice sit-down restaurant, white tablecloth, table service and all that, that probably narrows it down to a certain restaurant for pizza. If you're thinking about we want pizza delivered in 30 minutes guaranteed, that's going to be going to a different direction. Probably not the tastiest pizza, no table service, right? But you're getting pizza delivered quickly. If you're thinking highest quality ingredients, you're thinking at a different brand. You're thinking cheapest, right? So we move around as consumers based on what it is we're looking for beyond just that broad pizza. And then if you want to get super nerdy, you can start asking, well, do we want like Chicago deep dish, right? Do we want Detroit style? Do we want, even within Italy, do we want Roman style, right? Which style, which kind of pizza do we want?
See, right
and
there,
a company that specializes in one.
Yeah, right there, I'm answering the question. Is like, New York Neapolitan.
I mean, come on, even in New York, right? My family is originally from New York.
Yeah,
even in New York, someone from the Bronx is like, oh, Brooklyn pizza, I don't want that. Or Brooklyn's saying, oh, I don't want pizza from Queens. Like that's even within a city, right? So it's just, you think about niching and knowing your customer, right? When you niche, you will very much attract the customers who want you most, who will value what you have a lot more.
Right.
And you'll actively repel those who don't. So we typically look at, to answer your question, Michael, we look at who are the customers you are working with, where are you seeing that success, what's the best to work with, and so on. And then we play with niching there. That comes in the form of, more targeted ads, right? Using the language of that audience, going to landing pages, going to offers that are all much more tailored to that language.
Yeah. So for a lot of people listening out there, they keep hearing the phrase ideal customer, but you just talked about is a scientific and logical method of formulating who that ideal customer is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And when you get started and you have 0 customers, you're looking for that first one. Well, at this point, the question is like, well, who do you want to work with, right? You got to pick something. Right. Otherwise, if you're going out there saying, I can do anything for everyone, who's going to hire you for anything? We've all heard like the, jack of all trades, king of none phrase before, right? But when you start to narrow that down and niche it more, it gets better, right? You can have like a general contractor who's like, yeah, I can do roofing and plumbing and electrical and everything else. Or you have a GC who brings in the specialist and brings in the roofer, the plumber, the electrician, the people who are doing just that skill all day long and can bring that expertise to the table. So our goal for you is to figure out sort of what that niche is. You can still work within an industry, but who is it you work with? Right. There was in a mastermind group that I was part of, we had a member who did like financial planning. And so within his customer base, he sort of said, look, I only want to work with people with $1 million net worth and higher. And he had some more niching beyond that, but that was sort of one of the categories. And he decided he wanted to do like a customer appreciation event. Get his clients together, go do something, and bring in some speakers and that kind of stuff. And so it ended up that turned into the idea of a cruise. It was like, all right, cool. We'll get everyone together on a cruise. We'll cruise together. And he's asking like, what topics are of interest? What speakers should I bring in? And people are like, look, I just want to hang out with people like me. Mm-hmm. So he's like, oh, okay. So fun. We'll make it fun. So he does. They have a wonderful cruise. They have a few speakers. No one cared, but they mostly really enjoyed hanging out with people just like them. But as he did his feedback surveys after the fact, which we all should be doing in our business too, right? He got some interesting feedback. Many of the folks said like, hey, I loved the cruise was great, but I want to hang out with people more like me. People with like the $5 million net worth and higher. Like that's who I want to hang out with. None of this riffraff at like the million up. And he's like, oh, okay, got it. Like good feedback, thank you. And so the next year he offered a separate event for those with the $5 million net worth and up. And he's like, there we go. Now people can hang out with people like them. I've got my niche for how I take care of those clients and what we do. And wouldn't you know it, he did the feedback survey again and got basically the same feedback. Folks who were saying, it was great, but like, we really want to hang out with people with like the $50 million net worth and higher, not these folks at like, the 5. So it ended up, he found he really had 3 segments within his own client base. He had attracted them over time. Some he'd been working with longer and so on. But even segmenting within his customer base and changing the offerings he has for his existing clients comes down to, a few different avatars for that ideal client. So then who do you think he went out there to look for more of among those avatars? Who did he start to specialize more in? Right? And so that's sort of a good example, I think, of about looking at where are the niches even within your current clients beyond what you've been attracting so far and how you change your offerings up for those different audiences.
Right. So let's get to some tangibles of what this actually looks like, because we're going to start running short on time, and we got to get to the kind of beautiful world you want to create with all this.
Yeah.
So what are some of the tangibles, the results that people have gotten from your mastermind and from your coaching?
Yeah, so entrepreneurial freedom is really this big thing we're going for. And, one of the stories I love to share is, a lot of our members are serial entrepreneurs. So they'll come into the group with one business, and maybe they've had businesses in the past, but they often end up launching some new business during their tenure in the mastermind. And that's really cool because that's where we see these big pivots that come from the aha moments and those big light bulb ideas, that dimmer switch going up, within the group. So we've had many of our members who have launched entirely new businesses that eclipses the initial business they came in with. And that comes from those conversations and ideas that come up in the room. We also have members, one of our members came in with one business, had been doubling it year over year, had the need for a little side business to fill a gap in his market, and sort of threw out this little side business that required zero time of his, had a VA doing all the work, and just had an add to cart, buy now button online that flowed into the VA who took care of everything. The business needed none of his time. Well, that business grew and grew and grew on the side. In the interim, that main business he came into the group with, he exited, had a 7-figure exit on that business, packed up the family in an RV. They drove around the country for a year, doing the whole let's see all the things with our young family. This is the time to do it. And ended up settling, in Southern California, and found a home down that way, and has really lived this wonderful post-exit life that many business owners are going for. But in the meantime, beyond just that sort of payday from selling the business, that little side business has continued to produce. And that little side business that still requires none of his time has just continued to scale and grow. And so we love when that happens, when you have cash flow businesses as well as sort of chunky, exit size transactions as well. And this, I think, is one of those cool stories where there is a bit of both. But yeah, those are the kinds of things we love to see and our members get to do, because at the heart of it, we're entrepreneurs. We see gaps in the marketplace, but more importantly than that, we feel that we found a solution to those problems in the marketplace. But most importantly is we then do something about it. So starting one business is rarely the end game for entrepreneurs. Many of us have started multiple businesses and continue to do so because we see the gap in the marketplace, we find a solution for it, and then we do something about it. And you've got a business.
Oh, there you go. So fill the gaps.
Exactly. You probably experience these every day, right? You experience a frustration as a customer. You experience a frustration, as a business owner or, somewhere in your life.
Yeah.
And then you realize you can do something about it. And maybe there's a service there. Maybe there's a product. Maybe there's education. Maybe there's consulting. Maybe there's something that can help others not have that same problem you've had again and again. Speaking for myself, I was in a mastermind room and had a gap in my business, and we couldn't find a solution for it. So I threw out the idea of a software solution for that to our group as would this be a crazy idea? Because I kind of want this for my own business. And people around the table all said yeah, if you built that, we want that. And so we had effectively beta customers who were ready to test this thing before it was ready for the public right there in the room, launched a multi-million-dollar business from that. And, and that still runs to this day. And that kind of thing happens all the time, and we love it.
Yeah. Yeah, those sort of things do actually happen. We had somebody in our own group. He went from repairing websites to actually finding his own passion. So,
Nice.
and
That's awesome.
and he just
Yeah.
pivoted off into that. I still would call him to fix up a website or help me put a website together or something. But I know that his real passion is there, and that's why I refer him as
Yeah.
with that
And again, no
passion.
one's saying he has to turn the work down. That was that you knew him by before. He can still take it. It just might not be what he leads with when he's talking to talking to prospects about more the passion stuff.
Yeah.
But done right, what this does is it gets you that time back, and you get to choose how to spend that time. And for many folks, it's with families. For others, it's pursuing passions and hobbies. Others is travel. Others is all of the above. It's really a beautiful thing when you gain that time back. We all have the same end destination.
Yeah.
But wouldn't it be nice if we had a say in what we do between now and end of life?
Yeah, it leading back to it sounds cliche. It's not the destination; it's the journey. You know,
Yeah.
and
When our kids were younger, our kids are still young. When our kids were 1 or 2 years old, I remember we met this other couple. What was funny is we at the time had like a 1-year-old, and they handed us a business card, and the business card has the kid's name on it. It has both parents' phone numbers and the nanny's phone number. And they're like, hey, like, we'd love to set up a play date for our kid. Text our nanny, figure something out. It was this very businessy transactional thing. And we got talking, and it ended up they were both attorneys. So they both had paid for law school.
mm-hmm.
They hated their work, like hated it. But the money was good. So they're like, look, we did the numbers, and they're like, we put in 5 years, and then we're done. And I'm like, okay. But the first 5 years of your kid's life, you're just not around for them at all. You're not present for any of it. You have this tension and sleepless nights and everything, living a life you hate for 5 years. So then you can show up and say, hey, the financial part's figured out, and now we can do nothing and just be there. Like that. I guess that's a plan. That's just not the kind of plan that is attractive to me. I'd rather enjoy the journey along the way too.
It's not the plan for me. Let's put it that way.
Right.
Yeah.
So I'm always curious what happened with them, how that plan worked out.
Yeah. So, I was going to say, speaking of kids, it's like my kids are all, well, the last one's getting ready to graduate from high school, and he got the cooking and the travel bug from me. I had
That's
one
awesome.
kid
I
that
love
got the science bug from me. So,
Yeah.
and he's gonna go to chef school, and then he's saying that he wants to go off to the Czech Republic and learn how
Nice.
to immerse himself in a culture and cook the culture. I'm like,
Yeah.
there you go. Yeah,
Right?
Let's do this. It's like,
That's fantastic.
yeah,
When my wife was graduating college, towards her last year, we've been dating for 4 years, and she sat me down to have a difficult conversation. She's like, look, there's this really prestigious scholarship that if I apply to and get a Fulbright scholarship, but it's very competitive, and I probably won't get it. Like, no one gets these, but like, if I apply and get this, like, after graduation, I'm going to be off in Europe for a year. So, what do you think? And my response was like, well, that's amazing. Like, where would we live? And she looked at me and she's like, what do you mean? And I'm like, well, like, that sounds amazing. Like, of course you're going to get this, but where are we going to get to live in Europe? And that light bulb went off, and she's like, wait, you mean you come with me? And I'm like, well, of course. And in her mind, she was like, oh my gosh, I've got this, long-term boyfriend. We're in love. This is great. But how do I make a decision? And my answer was, well, it was clearly the answer was both. And so we did move overseas for a year, and my business continued to build up and grow. And I ran a business from 6 time zones, different, and it was fantastic. We, having that entrepreneurial freedom, I matched her schedule, which was, we worked Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday morning. But then by lunchtime Thursday, we were off to a train station, airport somewhere, and off for like 4 days. And then we're back on for 2. And it was incredible, but that was only possible because I'd been running my own business. I wasn't asking someone for permission. I wasn't quitting a job. I wasn't looking for work. I just continued to build things just from a different time zone. So that entrepreneurial freedom gives you that freedom of choice of how to spend that time. And that was at this point 20 years ago.
So since we are actually starting to wind down towards the end of the show, so using that entrepreneurial freedom, what is it that you want to teach people to choose for themselves? Obviously, not your choice, but what they need to choose for themselves.
So entrepreneurship isn't for everyone. It's only for select weirdos who, don't want that comfort of a JOB, but want to create something, want to truly build something, and want to have a say in what we build and how we build it. So for those who are on the fence and wondering, like, can I do this? Is it possible? The answer is yes. Are you willing to give up the things that come with a job to go create something arguably much better? And if the answer is yes, then entrepreneurship can provide that true entrepreneurial freedom for you.
Mm-hmm. Very cool. So, best ways to work with you and get just get in there and start building.
Yeah, I love writing about this stuff. Clearly, you and I could talk about this for days. But you can find, my writing and everything about this. That's all over at bayareamastermind.com, BAYAREA, mastermind.com. You can also find out about our mastermind groups. You can apply for a test drive to see if a mastermind group is a good fit for you. You can read about how to start your own mastermind groups, how to find mastermind groups, and all those kinds of things. That's all over at bayareamastermind.com.
Awesome. Cool. It's been great talking to you.
This was fun.
Yeah.
It was good to connect, and it was great to be on the show.
Yeah. So thank you, everybody, for listening, and go to the Bay Area mastermind.com, connect with Jeremy, and it's like, and let's have some fun with our new entrepreneurial time.
Love it.
All right, thanks everybody. Find that subscribe button wherever it is.
Help us to go.
This show has been produced by Depictions Media. please contact us at depictions.media for more information.